All right, Chair Miller, you are now live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting of the Ethics and Campaign Review Board to order. It is December 20th, 2021 at just after 3 o'clock. Can I have the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Miller.
Here.
Member Amer.
I'm here.
Member Biederman.
Here.
Member Kovnat.
Here.
Member Lujan. Member Martinez.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, and I'll just say we expect Member Lujan to join us if she is able to do so. But we can go ahead. We have a quorum, so we'll proceed. The item 3 on our agenda today is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Kovnat, seconded by Mr. Biederman. And I suppose we need a roll call vote for that.
Yes, Member Amer.
Aye.
Member Biederman.
Yes.
Member Kovnat.
Yes.
Member Martinez.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Item 4 is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was held on September 9th, 2021. Those meeting minutes have been provided to the board for our review. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Amer, seconded by Ms. Kovnat. A roll call vote for that motion, please.
Member Amer.
Yes.
Member Biederman.
Yes.
Member Kovnat.
Yes.
Member Martinez.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, great. We're going to move on to item 5, which involves 3 complaints that have been filed regarding various issues before the board. Complaints number 2021-04, -05 and -06. So we'll handle those sequentially. Before we get into the substance of those complaints, I know we've had complaints involving some of the same people and entities before that required the recusal of Member Martinez. Should we address that right off the bat, Ms. Martinez?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. For the reasons I've recused in the past, because my law firm is involved in the defense of Mayor Alan Weber, I will be recusing myself from consideration of these complaints as well. And I think what I've done in the past is actually leave the meeting. Is that what you would like me to do?
I think that's best. The question is, do you want to come back once we're through with those 3 items? There's, as you know, a little bit of housekeeping at the end of the meeting. Should we try to get you back on, or should we just proceed?
I am available for the normal meeting time. So if you'd like me to rejoin, why don't you shoot me an email or a text?
Okay.
But if you don't need me, that's fine with me as well.
Okay, I'll shoot you a text when we're done with the matters that you have recused yourself for. And you can rejoin or not, depending on how things are.
All right.
Or is there any discussion on the recusal of Ms. Martinez or any other comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for bringing that up, and we will continue without you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so item 5A then is for the board to address what has been numbered complaint number 2021-4. In sum, this is a complaint brought by Maria Bautista. Maria Batista. The respondents named are Mary Ellen Weber and Sasha Gwynn Anderson. The complaint makes allegations related to a interview conducted with the Santa Fe Fuego and the circumstances of the publication and dissemination of that interview. The complaint notes 3 sections of the code, including 9-2.3E, definition of campaign materials, 9-2.3I, definition of contributions, and 9-2.3M, definition of expenditures. The complaint was submitted at the end of October. The respondents were notified and filed a response. The board has in its possession materials from the complainant and the respondent regarding this complaint. I see, I believe, 2 representatives for the respondents. Am I right? Can you identify yourselves for the board, please?
Unmute.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kate Furlick and Jeff Herrera for Ms. Anderson and also the Alan Weber campaign.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Furlick and Mr. Herrera. Do we have anyone present for the complainant?
Mr. Miller, I do want to know that I have somebody that looks like they're on some type of device in the attendee room. However, they're not joining the meeting as a panelist, so I'm not sure who it is. It just says Pixel 4. They also don't have their name, but I do just want to note that I have somebody that I've been trying to promote.
And you have, or I suppose, are you able to notify them that they can join the meeting? If are they it just
Yes.
they're not asking to join? Is that the issue?
Yeah, and I've sent about 10 notifications to them for the promotion, but those haven't been accepted.
Okay. Well, if you
Okay.
don't mind keeping an eye on that, and if it is somebody who is involved, I would like them to be here, but I don't know what more you can do other than invite them in and see if they accept. But just keep an eye on it and let us know if that goes through. Okay.
Perfect, will do.
Okay. Thanks. Everyone here is familiar with the process of the ECRB and what we're doing, what our purpose is here today, but I'll just outline it briefly for the record and as a reminder. The first step in our procedures as a board is to determine if a complaint is legally sufficient, specifically whether the face of the complaint states with particularity, legally sufficient facts, which if true, show probable cause to believe that a violation of the code of ethics, the campaign code, or the public campaign finance code had occurred. So this is the board's opportunity to consider the complaint and other submissions in connection with it to determine if the complaint either was filed too late or to determine if it states a claim, if it's legally sufficient. And the board is required to dismiss the claim if it was filed too late, if it doesn't state a violation of the codes, if it's frivolous or filed solely to harass or intimidate, or if the board lacks jurisdiction over the subject matter of the complaint. If the board dismisses the complaint here, the matter is resolved. If we do not, then we will proceed to a hearing and we can talk about those procedures when the time is right. So that process will apply to all 3 of these complaints that we will that the board will need to. It's our opportunity to review the complaint, hear the submissions of the parties with respect to the allegations in the complaint, and make a determination about legal sufficiency of the complaint. So with that said, I will first open it up to the board's discussion, if any, on complaint 2021-04. And then I would like to give an opportunity to the complainant and the respondents, if they would like to speak to the board at this time. Nobody has to, it's not required, but it's your opportunity to speak to the board if you would like to. So first, let's open it up for the board. Are there any comments or questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify, I would like to hold my comments until after we've heard from both parties if possible, just for my part.
Okay, understood. Anyone else?
I as well would like to withhold my comments until after I've heard from both parties.
Okay, very good. I do see another person just joined the meeting, and not to put you on the spot, but if that attendee is a representative of Maria Bautista or the complainant in matter 2021-04, we've opened discussion of that complaint, and we are just about to open it up to the complainant and respondent for a statement or comment to the board. Is the new attendee a representative of Maria Bautista? Okay, I'm not hearing an answer or seeing anything. So just as an open call, is there anybody at the meeting who would like to speak? Either if you are Maria Bautista or a representative of Ms. Bautista, would you like to speak regarding complaint 2021-04?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I please request that, just to be certain that there's nobody who's having trouble getting in, that we mention the phone access that they can call, if they can't appear on the online version, at least they can call in just to make sure they've had every opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Mr. Biederman. Do you have, let me see if I have that number. Okay, if anyone's listening and would like to call, you may join by phone through a number of numbers, but I'll give you two. The first is 1-346-248-7799 with a meeting code of 8405-0698-151#. And that's One Tap Mobile. To connect through One Tap Mobile. You can also join by phone, which is 1-346-248-7799 with a webinar ID 840-5069-8151. Okay, let's hopefully whoever wanted to join has had the chance to do so. Ms. Furlick or Mr. Herrera, would you like to speak for the respondent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Also a big thank you for getting a quorum today. I know between holidays, it's really difficult to schedule, and so thank you for your time. And I will be brief in the response because we have filed a very detailed response. But essentially, complaint 004 is the same complaint that was filed as 001 earlier that was dismissed. The complainant makes substantially the same arguments. Particularly, the complainant alleges that the Alan Weber campaign induced Yvonne Encinias, who is the general manager of the Santa Fe Fuegos baseball team, to appear in a video without informing her that the video would be used for campaign purposes. As I discuss in detail in the response, the complaint is entirely based on some alleged discussion that the complainant had with Ms. Encinas. And it is at the discretion of the board chair whether or not to admit that. Generally speaking, the board rules require that hearsay evidence be used to support or substantially fill in the gaps of a complaint. Here, in the affidavit of the complainant, we have, very passive language. There's no particular person identified. And even if that information is taken as true, it does not rise to the level of a violation. And you see that because the law that's cited is purely definitional. It's not anything that would prohibit or govern conduct of campaigns. And again, it is up to this board to make the decision on the complaint as written rather than fill in any gaps. For the reason that the complainant has failed to state a claim, we ask that the complaint be dismissed. I do want to be brief, so I will stand for any questions that the chair or the members have.
Thank you, Ms. Furlick. Let me just address I see a hand raised from one person in attendance, but I don't see what the intention of the question is. Ms. Naira, if that's you and you'd like to speak, I believe you can at this point,
Yes.
and welcome you to do it.
Hello. We're here. Hi. You got it muted. Do you hear me?
I do. Are you, can you identify yourself? Are you on behalf of the complainant?
My name is Nira Hitana. I am Maria Bautista's friend and associate, and she's right here. We have been trying to get in for over an hour, and there she is. Mrs. Christine Bustos, Hillick, we received the wrong ID to check in with you, and she just provided it to us. I'm sorry that happened, but she had to give us a new ID. I am on the screen now, and I did hear a little bit about what you said, but if you'd like me to present, I am able to do that now.
Great. Well, I'm glad you could join us. Did you hear enough of the explanation of the proceedings and what we are here today? Did you hear that part?
We could listen, but we couldn't participate.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any questions about the procedures or what this board is doing today? If you have any questions, you feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll just ask you to go ahead and let us know your thoughts on your complaint.
I appreciate that. And I'd like to just basically, you have copies of my complaint. I was able to speak to Mrs. Encinas after this all happened. And if you look at the last page of my complaint, there's an affidavit. And the affidavit I filed was to support the complaint. I spoke both to Andrew Dunn, who is the owner of the Santa Fe Fuegos, and then I had an opportunity to speak to Mrs. Encinas as well. I was concerned as an Hispanic woman about her being misdirected in this at this place where she was interviewed. And then based upon what she said to me, I felt that it would be very important to bring it to the ethic board's attention. And the reason that I felt it was important is because we have many campaigns that'll be coming up in Santa Fe. And regardless if they're Democrats or Republicans, independent, there are rules that all parties have to adhere to. And I kept seeing what I call banners flying across videos during interviews or at other events. And I thought that it would be appropriate for me to say something about that because I felt that public events were being taken advantage of, not public, but city funded events specifically were being taken advantage of because every time they could get in a little campaign tag for the mayor's campaign, they did. When I went to the clerk's office to do this, I had a copy of the video. It's on the thumb drive here in the computer. And I don't know if you've seen it, but with the problems we've had getting on today, I could bring it to the office for you and to the clerk's office. I'm not looking to, if you look at what I say in terms of sanctions and solutions, I'm just looking at the future. The mayor's campaign has already been decided, but these are things that will prolong and affect future campaigns. And that's why I thought it was important to bring it to the ethics board, because you have a better way of saying it in terms of, well, we think we need to write a letter and remind people that there are rules we have to abide by. I know that I didn't list all of the specific appropriate ordinances. I did cite the ones that I thought were specific, and but I'm not an attorney, so I don't do this. I'm doing this on my own as a citizen, just trying to participate. And I do feel that Yvonne was taken advantage of. As a citizen, I felt that was inappropriate. I felt like the campaign for any candidate has to be straight up with the community about what they're doing and how they're doing it, because what's going to happen to the other campaigns now in the future? If you say, well, this was okay, how okay is it? Is it a little bit okay? Or is it a lot okay? Or maybe it doesn't have any merit because I didn't cite the right things. But I really believe that you understand what I'm saying. And I'm not saying it in a malicious way. I'm 74 years old. I just saw it, and I saw it repeated more than once, and it bothered me. And so I said, well, where do you go? Well, I'll tell you where I went. I went to the Secretary of State, Maggie Tula Rose Oliver, because I did not know where to go. So initially, I went to her office and I filed the complaint with her. And they wrote back a very nice letter to me, and they said, Ms. Bautista, we do handle campaign complaints, but specifically this municipal complaint, we don't. And so she redirected it. But I do have a letter from her, and I filed a complaint on June 18th, 2021 at 3 p.m. by hand in her office, and she responded July 2nd, 2021. So I was trying to do it the right way, but following the all of the procedures in government, you can get mixed up. And so I went from the Secretary of State to the state ethics board, and then they had to redirect me to your board. And I appreciate the time you've given me. These things did happen. Whether or not I didn't cite the correct ordinance, I cited, I think your resolution said that I described them, but I didn't cite specifically. But I don't think that's the meat in the stew. And I think that it's fair to say that it did happen, and that you would figure out the appropriate way to bring it to the attention of the spokesperson for the Mayor Weber campaign for mayor. There's going to be more elections, and this could come before you multiple times. So I think it's always a good idea to look at things and work together to kind of resolve them for all of us. And I have all the newspaper articles. If I click on this thumb drive, it shows you the interview, and it shows you out of nowhere, Mayor Alan Weber campaign for mayor flyer that you could just see was inserted and then pushed through. The video was released publicly on social media, although Mrs. Encinas asked that it not be, because her employer wanted to see it. And so it kind of sets, she felt she was, it was inappropriate. And when we spoke, she felt very uncomfortable about it. And she said, oh, I just don't want things to be so bad that maybe now Mayor Weber won't like us. But I did not agree to an endorsement. And that's what it looked like. So that's what I'm presenting. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bautista. That, and I'm glad you were able to get through, and sorry about all the difficulties there, but thank you for stating your position to the board. Now that we've heard from the complainant and the respondent, do any of the board members have questions or comments? Mr. Biederman.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I can, yes.
Okay, Ms. Bustos, I was curious, what you've just told us and what was in your complaint. You added that newspaper article with interviews with Ms. Encinas, and I'm just trying to figure out what exactly is it in the article that you felt was helpful to or supported your position on this? What is it that she said that you thought supported the idea that somehow she was taken advantage of, which I believe is what you said?
Yes, she said to me.
No, I'm asking what's in the article. You told us what.
Yes. That she wasn't aware that it was going to be used as an endorsement for the campaign, that she thought it was going to be used for public relations, and that it was used and released without her knowledge. And that was a little bit uncomfortable, because she was trying to do a good thing for her baseball team as a manager, and she felt undermined. And she alluded to that. I have the article here someplace, but I'd have to read it to give you the specific notation.
Well, I read that. I'm reading the part, the closest thing I'm seeing to what you said is, she says, I wasn't intending it as an endorsement, but to get people excited to go to a baseball game. I never mentioned an endorsement. I never said vote for XYZ. It was more so, we are opened up. Let's come out and see some baseball. And that, you're saying, is what?
No, that was how she ended it.
Yeah.
That's how she ended it, because that was already, it had already gone through. The video had already been seen. The what she thought was going to be PR wasn't given back to her for her review or her manager's review before it was released. And that's why she felt that it was misrepresented to her. Now mind you, what I've submitted to you is an affidavit based on the conversation I had with her. And she did feel pretty bad, because she felt like she was put in a position she didn't want to be put into. Because then she said, I don't want this to be, she felt this is the first year that Alan Weber's administration has supported the Fuegos, and we really don't want to blow it. That is exactly what she said to me. You know, the words here on the affidavit are everything that came as a result of that conversation. And I did also speak to the owner of the Fuegos the same day. And he knew of the video, but he thought he was going to get to see it before it was released. So we wanted to bring it to their attention that you can't just do these things. Her job as the manager of the Fuegos is contingent on the directions that she takes from Mr. Dunn. So if she doesn't do things the way that her employer is asking her to do them, and the city's putting her in a position where they asked her to sign a document prior to the video, and then later said that she knew what was going on. She says she didn't. She didn't know any of that was going on. She thought it was just PR, game day, and realized that it had been used in the political campaign flyer. And that was, but it wasn't just that time. There have been other instances, of course, as you know, because things have come before you, where there have been mentions of city-sponsored events having overlays for the campaign. And I really feel that it's important that we stand to that and say, well, you know what? It isn't a good idea. It's like if you have a birth certificate and you've had your birth certificate and then somebody picks up your birth certificate and all of a sudden somebody else is you. And you know what they do out there with false IDs. It's that same kind of feeling. If it was going to be for PR, it should have been for PR. And there should have been no political interjection and no misleading her into believing that. It's I think it's just, and I'm glad that you serve as an ethics committee, because that's something that, remember in school, we used to go to school, there were ethics classes, there were rhetoric classes, there, those don't exist anymore, but they did. And it's important. I think it's important. And so that's why I came to you with this concern. And I did an affidavit because we spoke for a long time. And I did speak to Mr. Dunn, and he felt very uncomfortable that it was used for a political campaign versus a PR, a Support the Fuegos event. So I'm sorry, sir, if I didn't answer Mr. Biderman, I tried.
You have.
Thank you.
Ms. Bautista, I have a quick question for you. When Ms. Encinias spoke to, whoever she spoke to in this interview or creating the video, who did she actually speak to and who did she think she was speaking to?
Well, as far as I understood, she spoke to representatives for the Alan Weber campaign, and I'm not sure the exact person she spoke to. I only listed the representative as the spokesperson for his campaign that we knew, and that was Mrs. Sasha Ginn Anderson, who was the spokesperson. So we don't know if it was her or one of her employees who was working on the campaign.
Okay, thank you.
But Mrs. Encinas knows.
Do you, does anybody else from the board have a question or comment? Okay, not seeing any questions. How about discussion on the legal sufficiency of the complaint? Mr. Biederman?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that the respondent has raised some very serious considerations. We have dealt now for a number of times during and now since the election with complaints that we found on, from different parties, including Ms. Furlick, that the complaint did not state the section of the law that was violated, or the rule that was violated. And I think that's clearly the case here. All we have is allegations of nothing. We have definitions, sections that are cited, and that doesn't state a violation. And without getting, without relying just on that technical aspect of things, I think we also need to look at the fact that, or if we don't agree with that, we should also look at the fact that the affidavit really has a very different tone and is hearsay, as Ms. Furlick pointed out earlier, but it has a very different tone from the statements in the article, in the newspaper article, which tells me that if we don't have the testimony of Ms. Encinas, we really don't know what she said firsthand. We can't rely, because we have two different sources here that are not the same. And the tone is different. There's things stated in the affidavit that do not appear at all or even inconsistent with the statements in the newspaper article as quoted to the reporter. We can't move ahead on a complaint like that. And I'm concerned because I think we're seeing the same issues coming up over and over. And I don't know that the purpose is actually to get any results. I'm beginning to wonder just what the purpose is when the same kinds of complaints are coming up and being dismissed, and then they come up again. And, is there a purpose here to actually get something from this board, or simply to use this as a sounding board for publicity? I'm starting to become nervous about that. It's not the way we're set up. It's not where we serve our most useful purpose. And I just think we need to move on from this election. So I'm going to move to dismiss this as the complaint as insufficient, as not stating sufficient grounds for action on our part.
Okay, I understand, Mr. Biederman, you made a motion there. Could you just restate it briefly? And I saw Ms. Amer with her hand up, but since you finished your discussion with the motion, let's just get that on the table.
Well, if I spoke out of turn with a motion, I'm willing to defer that until the conversation by the rest of the members is concluded. I shouldn't have jumped.
Well, I was going to second the motion.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think it's out of line or premature, Mr. B. I wasn't sure I exactly understood what the motion was. If you could.
The motion was to dismiss the complaint for failure to state a claim.
Okay, and Ms. Amer, do you second that motion?
Yes, I would like to second that motion. And I would also like to state that the affidavit, yes, is very different than the complaint. And without actually having Ms. Encinas present to testify, I don't think we can even consider it's hearsay. I don't think we can consider it at all.
Okay. Ms. Kovnat, any comment or any, we can go straight to a vote if there's no further comment.
I think we should go to a vote.
Okay. There's a motion and a second, a motion by Mr. Biederman to dismiss the complaint for failure to state a claim, and a second by Ms. Amer. The board has concluded its discussion, and I would now like to call for a roll call vote on that motion.
Member Amer,
Yes.
Member Biederman,
Yes.
Member Kovnat.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Bautista, that I know that there's a little bit of a legal process in there and legalese, but just to state it in plain terms, the board has decided that the complaint does not state a claim for a violation of the city ordinances and is dismissing the complaint. So that concludes complaint 2021-4. I'd like to thank you for being here and stating your describing your complaint to us. And thank you also, Ms. Furlick, for the respondent. We'll move on in the agenda. I said just a note on the sequence here. I said at the beginning we would handle these sequentially. In other words, complaint 04, 05, and then 06. But 06 is another complaint from Ms. Bautista, I believe. And for her convenience, I'd like to jump to that because I don't believe anyone is here for the respondent for complaint number 05. But let me just make sure of that. Is there anyone attending today on behalf of Save Santa Fe Culture PAC for complaint number 05, 2002-105. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Does anybody object or have a reason we shouldn't just go straight to 06? Okay, Ms. Bautista, you are the complainant in the second complaint, 2021-06. In that complaint, you also name Mayor Alan Weber and Alan Weber for mayor as the respondent. You make allegations in connection with the placement of campaign signs on city property and raise 2 sections of the city code regarding the rules on temporary political signs and improper gifts, 1-7.7. Would you like to address the board? Assuming the board would like to proceed in the same way and that we hear from the complainant and respondent and then have discussion. Unless anyone has objections to that, I'll go straight to Ms. Bautista on the complaint. Okay, not seeing any. Ms. Bautista, would you like to explain or tell the board whatever you would like to about your second complaint?
Yes. When the Alan Weber for mayor campaigns were distributed, and I believe you have exhibits A through E to show the locations that I am speaking about. The individuals who Alan Weber hired to run the campaign and distribute materials needed to inform the individuals who distributed the campaign signs that they couldn't be placed on public property. And if you look at the exhibits, they were. I also understand that the mayor denied this allegation and wants a dismissal. And I really have a concern about this because if in fact he's denying it and seeks a dismissal, then I think we really need to launch an investigation to discover who did it or who's doing it, because there was a lot of signs. What you have received from me is just a few. This was all over Santa Fe, at every park, at every public facility. And I think that the law is very clear that a public facilities and use of services cannot be used to support campaigns. One of the reasons that I'm really concerned about this, because I think the citizens need to be fully informed about what happened and how all these signs suddenly got placed on city properties. They were all over the place. But I think if you look at the exhibits, that gives you a good idea. And there's also a witness, and we have a lot of pictures, of course. And in the complaint form, number 5 states where you can get additional photographs and information. The one thing I know from having been a candidate is that people, it's a federal offense to mess around with campaign signs. So if in fact Mayor Weber's denying it and denying that his team did this and seeks a dismissal, then I think there's grounds for an investigation. And I think it becomes another level because they're federal. And if someone's really did that, then the community needs to know that. There needs to be some accountability as to what happened here. How did it happen? Because there was more than 15 signs. And the exhibits that you see, and it is a learning lesson. Let me tell you, presenting information and having to go do the research. There are city ordinances that you wanted, 1-7.7, which to lay people like me is like another language, but maybe like if Spanish would be to you when you first start speaking it. Well, legalese is the same for me. So I do my best and try to bring it to your attention. There again was an incident where a city-sponsored prepaid brochure was retracted and another overlay for the campaign attached. So it's happening regularly. And I think Mr. Biderman has a good point. If you don't at some point say something, I mean, what can you say? You're not saying, well, we don't want Weber to be in office, but there is an issue that happened, and you're going to continually see this because it will continually happen because it's the same spokesperson and it's the same campaign team. And you know, and they've already seen you've already seen complaints. You've already heard it before. No, you shouldn't be a sounding board, but when there's an ethical violation, that's what the board was set up for. And I didn't call press. I don't call the newspapers. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the justice end of this. For you to take it and say, look, this is a bunch of baloney and we need to deal with it. We really do. Because if it was if any other candidate, all of them, would go to your front yard and put all of their campaign signs in your front yard, well, you would know that was an ethical violation right away because you're in the ethics committee. But a regular person down the street doesn't know things like that. And so you are charged with you're charged with a really important legal responsibility because you're basically keeping everybody within those parameters. And I think acknowledging it isn't a negative thing. That what's going to happen? You're going to acknowledge it and say, yes, these things did happen, and we need to ensure that everybody follows along by the same rules. That's why they're written. So it was improper campaigning. It was unfair because the other candidates didn't have the same opportunity to go put their signs on public property. Specifically the turnaround on Siler, the number of signs there was just amazing. You know, like 15 of them or something, and then they were thrown around, and then they were on Kaya Nopal on the way to the landfill. And so I think that it is within your realm to kind of review these things and say, wait a minute, you know, we do have an obligation. You're representing us. And this is, and any information, any question, I'd be glad to answer. These photos are just a few. If you want to see more, just go to the number 5, Jay Baker at Facebook. You'll get a lot of additional photos, but they've already denied it. I say we should investigate and find out who's doing this. Because if somebody's really doing this at our campaign, they're going to do it to everybody. Everybody. And we need to find out who's doing it, because you know what? There's a lot of activity on our streets. And they're doing a lot of things besides begging for money on corners and sleeping in the arroyos and robbing people. So are they doing it? Who's doing it? And let's get an investigation going and let's put a stop to it. That doesn't obligate you to take a side, left or right. It obligates you to find out what's going on and make it a better campaign and make it a safer campaign. Because there's going to be campaigns for how long? The rest of our lives.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's imperative that you weigh that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bautista. I'd like to give the the respondent a chance to state their position. So, Ms. Furlick, will that be you again?
It will be. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Ms. Bautista presents a number of photographs of campaign signs, and I'd like to amend the response a little bit here by asking for dismissal simply because, while there are photographs, there's nothing presented indicating that it's public property. There's not boundary surveys. There's, in essence, she has failed to state a claim or put together the requisite evidence that campaign signs were on public property. If, these are on public properties or property, as I stated in the response, it is not the work of the campaign. The campaign took many strides to ensure compliance with the campaign code, including calling the clerk's office to report that campaign signs were missing. I think, Member Biederman was right that these things continue. And I think this is being filed for the purpose of harassment. And to what end? We have said in our response that a member of the campaign will go check to make sure that no campaign signs are on public property. Ms. Batista alleges basically two violations. First, of the campaign code. If they are on public property, she presents photos, but no evidence that it's public property. The second is the ethics code. And what the ethics code is basically designed to protect is an abuse of power by someone in office. And there's absolutely no evidence that somehow Mayor Weber used his position as mayor with the campaign to then place signs on this property, whether it's public or not. I, again, would like to be brief because I think we were very thorough in our response, and so we'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Furlick. Any questions from the board? Let's go first to Ms. Amer. Go ahead, Ms. Amer.
I have several questions, but I'm not sure who can answer them. I too don't know whether, I looked at all the pictures and I'm thinking, is that public property just because it's close to the road? And is the complainant assuming that the city owns has a right of way up to the road? I can't figure out how the complainant knows or even thinks that every single one of those pictures shows public property. That being said, I'm also really interested in section 9-2.15E, which says that the city manager shall request candidate liaison contacts to remove their own candidates' unlawful signs within 24 hours, and upon their failure to do so, shall impose a fine of $50 per sign per day. Did any of those things happen in any of these cases? Did the city manager request the candidate liaison to remove the signs? Did they fail to do so? Have any fines been imposed? And if so, how much? And if not, why not? And I don't know if there's anybody who can answer any of those questions.
Let me ask Ms. Bustos Mihalsik from the clerk's office. Were there any actions taken with respect to these signs through the processes set out in 9-2.15?
Mr. Chair Miller, Member Kaufman, there were not when we were in contact with the campaign sign liaison and the campaign team for Mayor Weber's campaign. That was part of the notification. We would notify them that these signs were up. They did send out staff to verify the signs had been pulled. I know specifically mentioned was like the Seiler roundabout. We received confirmation calls from the campaign team as soon as we were notified, Mayor Weber's campaign team, that there were no signs they could find. I sent out land use, our code enforcement team. They were also unable to locate these signs. So we were actually unable to locate the signs when we received the complaints. They were no longer there. So no fines were issued. And the sign liaisons were contacted and code enforcement was sent out on these, as well as the constituent services staff member, to identify if there were signs and there were not.
Okay, I appreciate that information, and I think I'm glad Ms. Amer raised that section of the code, because to me, signs are ubiquitous during a campaign. They're all over the place. There is a real interest in making sure they're in the right place and not violating the code, but there's a fairly robust and fast process for dealing with improperly placed signs. And to me, that's the better way to resolve a concern about signs, as opposed to an ethics complaint alleging that, without support, that allowing those signs to remain was some sort of improper gift or a real significant problem that needs to be addressed by this board after the fact. But I'll go ahead and Mr. Biederman, I see you with your hand up.
I'm sorry. I was going to raise that section too. And my thought was the ordinance has provided the mechanism. It seems very explicit and for who is supposed to handle this particular issue. I think it preempts our authority even to act, because it defines the process right here, I think. I'm not certain of that. In which case we'd have no jurisdiction to work on this issue at all.
Okay.
I think
Ms.
it's
Kavanaugh?
something, I think that's something that we could look at, though, to determine whether there's adequate guidance to campaigns about placement of signs and the directions to the people who place signs. I don't know whether, not in the context of this complaint, but in the context of the future, just to examine what instructions are given for the placement of signs. We know what happens when they're improperly placed and have to be removed, but I'm not sure we know about the instructions for placement initially.
Okay, Ms. Bustos-Mihalcik, did you have a comment?
Chair Miller, Member Kavanaugh, I can speak to that. We do put the section of the code that's related to temporary political signs into the handbooks that are handed out to all candidates, and we do go over it with the campaign teams. And then we do have land use, which is really the primary enforcement arm for this. I think Mr. Senna joined us one day during an ECRB meeting when we also invited candidates for the meeting. So we do try to provide the guidance, and I do want to note that we provided on the spot as well, which is we were aware of these issues with the campaign teams and with the sign liaisons because of that. So, so I do just want to note that it is placed in their handbooks when they pick them up. And then we do go over that with them as well, at least once with the candidates, and then follow-ups as necessary.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for that. Mr. Biederman?
Yes, Catherine, if I don't know who exactly would be able to answer this, but had the mayor's campaign in fact placed signs on public property and been advised and failed to move the signs, would the mayor have been fined $50 by the city?
Chair Miller and Member Biederman, I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of the city manager, but it would have been brought to the city manager's attention, and then she would have made a recommendation moving forward.
The reason I ask is that it may be kind of difficult for the city manager who answers to the mayor to actually implement this. Might be an unfair burden on the city manager and unfair expectation. So, and I'm not speaking of any city manager or mayor in particular, I'm speaking generally. So I'm thinking maybe it would be an issue for us to look at to ensure that this is an enforceable section. Right now, I think it's a little dubious that this would be enforced in any case, not just this mayor, not just the city manager we have at the time.
Chair Miller and Member Biederman, just one more note on that as well is if our land use department, they also receive calls as well as constituent services on signs. And so in some cases, they will go out and notify an individual or a right of way that the signs aren't supposed to be there. And then they also, on occasion, will, if they see a sign like in a park, we'll just pick up the sign and bring it back to the clerk's office. So, and I do have signs from all campaigns in my office, not just one where people have picked them up and dropped them off or said, I saw this one out. And so I do just want to note that I have a wide array of campaign signs in my office from the previous campaign. But yeah, absolutely. Any suggestions related to this code, this section of the code are always welcome from the Ecrb team.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else from the board like to comment or make a motion with respect to this complaint?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Biederman.
I will move that the complaint be dismissed with subject to the stipulation offered by the mayor's council and the mayor's campaigns council. That would be the actual motion. And then in addition, I would say that the board reevaluate this section for its effectiveness. But that's a side thing. For the motion is to dismiss subject to the adoption of the stipulation or the, I don't know what the adoption would be, but the subject to the stipulation provided by the mayor's council.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, I think Miss Amer jumped in there first, so
Sorry.
seconded by Miss Amer. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, and the board has the stipulation proposed. And as far as that goes, that can be accepted on our accepted by the board upon our discussion. So I interpret that to mean exactly what we're doing right here. So if there's no more discussion on the motion, I will call for a roll call for a vote.
Member Amer,
Yes.
Member Biederman,
Yes,
Member Kovnat.
Yes,
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again, Ms. Bautista and Ms. Furlick, for taking your time to be here so close to the holidays. And we really appreciate your time and attention to this complaint and hope you have a very nice holiday season.
may I add my thanks, please, to Ms. Bautista for bringing to our attention this particular issue about signs, because I think she did raise some issues of procedure that I think are helpful for us to be discussing.
Okay, and this will be something for the board to consider going forward also. So thank you for that. To move on to the third complaint before us today, which is 2021-5. Ms. Furlick, I think you're here for that one too. But I don't see anyone else on the line. Is there anyone who is here to represent Save Santa Fe Culture PAC, the complainant? Okay, that's fine. We have the complaint in front of us, and that's really what we as a board are working off of. Anyway, just to sum up this complaint, it alleges or makes the complainant, as I said, is Save Santa Fe Culture PAC. The respondent is Sasha Gwynn Anderson. The complaint makes allegations related to conflicts of interest and an allegation that the respondent didn't file a disclosure statement with the city. With that, Ms. Furlick, since you're the only representative here for the parties, would you like to speak on behalf of Ms. Gwynn Anderson? You're muted, Ms. Furlick.
Sorry about that. The Save Santa Fe Culture PAC essentially makes two allegations, as you all saw, that she failed to make a requisite disclosure for members of municipal commissions under the Ethics Code and is impermissibly conflicted between being a member of the Santa Fe Women's Commission, on the school board, work as a consultant for Mayor Weber's campaign, and also work as a consultant for the district attorney's office. Now, the complaint alleges, it really gets the facts wrong. It says that Ms. Anderson is the campaign manager and also fails to untangle any timeline here. Basically, it's targeting Ms. Anderson because she has association with Mayor Weber, who won the election in November. And this seems to be a theme that's coming up. I think that our response details the actual timeline. I think I would argue, and we have a lot of citations for this, that Ms. Anderson is a public servant by her very nature. I mean, anyone that volunteers to be on the school board and puts yourself forward to be an elected official, serves on the Women's Commission. I mean, I know this commission knows very well the riches that you reap for sitting on the ethics board. This is a person that's dedicated her life to public service. Certainly, there are no issues under the ethics code whatsoever indicating that there is a conflict of interest between all of, for serving in all of these various roles. On the issue of, the filing of the form with the county clerk, we've attached an affidavit from Ms. Anderson stating affirmatively that that was filed. And it was November of 2020. The form is required to be submitted by mail. People were not in the office in November of 2020. So simply because an IPRA request does not produce a response does not mean that Ms. Anderson did not file this. I think this complaint is intended to harass Ms. Anderson, and we present a lot of evidence of that in our response. And generally speaking, we need to put an end to these things for, sort of getting complaints against people that are associated with Mayor Weber simply because, they are associated with Mayor Weber. If anyone has any questions, I will certainly take them, but I think we detailed very well in the response what our response is.
Okay, thank you. Opening it up to the board, are there any questions for Ms. Furlick or comments in general? Mr. Biederman?
Yeah, I do have a question. Is this commission, forgive me for not knowing more, is this commission advisory or does it have any kind of authority other than to recommend?
Mr. Chair and Member Biederman, do you want me to answer that question or is it directed to Ms. Bustos?
To whom?
Would you like me to answer the question? It's advisory in nature. Sorry. I didn't know if it was appropriate for me to answer that. It is.
Yeah.
Okay. It's advisory in nature. It's an unpaid position. It largely mimics what the state commission on the status of women does, which is to, on occasion, look at inequities in government to determine whether, women are getting a fair shake, basically. And in that exploration, advise the city council and the mayor. And really, it's a commission made up of unpaid individuals that meet and talk about gender justice issues.
And are you reading the complaint? I mean, I would ask this of the complainant if they were here. Are you reading this to say that there is something wrong with a political figure appointing political figures to commissions because they've worked together? Is that part of this?
It seems to be, it's somewhat muddled, I think, this argument. And I think we've set out the timeline in the response that Ms. Anderson wasn't working for the campaign when she was appointed. She served, she resigned, then went to work for the campaign. But certainly there would also not be an issue under the ethics code, certainly not the campaign code, of working for the city and serving on this commission.
Yeah, because I'm wondering how many commissions, state or city, would have any members left if off political appointees. It's often a reward. I mean, we wouldn't have any ambassadors either, for that matter. And the last thing I have is I don't believe, unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe I actually saw the disclosure statement. Did you provide that, the disclosure statement that was filed? Is that in the record?
So it's not in the record. It was mailed to the city clerk's office per the instruction on the form. Ms. Anderson did not retain a copy.
Okay.
I have a question if you're done.
Yeah.
So it sounds from what you stated, Ms. Furlick, that Ms. Anderson did file a disclosure of being an appointee on the Women's Commission. Did she file a disclosure about her activities regarding the district attorney and her running for the school board? Is she also a member of the school board? Has she filed disclosures regarding those activities as well?
So under the timeline, actually, I think Christine wants to talk, but I'm happy to answer that question.
Chairman Miller and Member Kovnat, if it's appropriate, I did just want to note the timeline on that because the appointments for the Women's Commission were during 2020 at the end of that year. And so that was before both the political campaign season and then prior to, it was even prior to when I was actually city clerk. So we don't have the form on file in our office for the individual, but did reach out to the member to have it updated.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any other disclosure forms?
Oh, Chair Miller, Member Kovnat, we do not. We only keep disclosures on file for our own committees. So we don't keep them on file for anything outside of a city appointed committee or an elected official for the city of Santa Fe. Does that answer? Sorry, is that?
Yeah, this is Mrs. Amer. So I take it that you basically do not possess any disclosure forms, or Ms. Anderson?
We do not. My office does not. I apologize. It was prior to the time that I was here, and it was when forms were being mailed in. That also was during COVID. So we can't speak to that. We do them electronically now for members, and they are renewed in July of each year. So, but that is true.
Ms. Amer, did you have any other questions?
Not at this time. I might have more, but not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just make an observation that in the years that we've served on this board, we are all supposed to file disclosure forms regularly, and my recollection is that the city is sometimes very timely in getting us the forms, and sometimes it's not. And so I would hate to or feel like it's somewhat inappropriate to find a public official who's volunteering to serve on a board or commission, to find that they have behaved unethically when it seems like it's possible that the form was sent to the city and misplaced or didn't get processed or whatever. But also there's a timeline for filing these forms, and the city doesn't always reach out to public officials in time to do that. Ms. Bustos Mihalsik, I'm probably not speaking about past city personnel, but anyway, it strikes me as a little bit of a jump to find a volunteer acted unethically because of something where the problem may have lied with the city. Mr. Biederman?
Yeah, I looked at section 1-7.6, and I'm not sure that we all have to do that. 7.6B says upon election, appointment, or employment, public officials and department heads shall disclose in writing the information listed below, and it's the listing that was in the complaint. And then I looked at what was a public, how they define public officials. And that means the city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and any member of a governmental body, including the governing body. And then the governmental body is any board, commission, or committee appointed by the governing body with the advice and consent of the governing body. So it's on that last point. Was the Women's Commission appointed with the advice and consent of the council, or was that simply a direct appointment by the mayor? Because if the council wasn't involved in giving advice and consent on the appointment, as I don't think it was for us, I was appointed by the mayor, and Ms. Cobman, I believe you were as well.
Yes.
And I don't remember any confirmation on that by the council, do you? It was a long time ago.
No, on the other hand, I remember filing a disclosure.
No, I know. We've done it voluntarily. I don't think we had to, is what I'm getting at. And does anybody know if Catherine, do you know if the Women's Commission requires, if the membership requires approval by the council, advice and consent?
Paul, I'll just say that for us, we are appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the governing body. So
We are?
but
Okay. Maybe so long.
I don't know. To me, it's kind of what I guess what I'd like to see is that the city, if there are missing disclosure forms and gaps in the disclosure forms, that the city should try to fix it. And but I don't think it's an ethical issue for us to come down on a volunteer who, whether she did submit it or not, it wasn't there, and the city could have and should have known and should have gotten it. So
right.
That's my thought.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue is there a conflict of interest working for, volunteering for a campaign, being a school board member, being a public spokesperson for a district attorney's office, all at the same time. And I don't think, just personally per se, there is a conflict of interest. There may be in specific instances conflicts of interest where Ms. Anderson would need to recuse herself. But to just generally say that just because a person is doing a variety of different public service or jobs doesn't necessarily mean point blank there's a conflict of interest. Maybe on a certain issue it might arise and she would have to recuse herself. But that's my opinion.
I agree with that.
Me too.
Thank you. Paul, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the citation here, but I recall that there is in the Governmental Conduct Act, which of course would apply, although we couldn't enforce it. The Governmental Conduct Act provides a distinction between partisan and nonpartisan elections, elected posts. So the school boards being nonpartisan, I think are, for example, a state employee could not, I know this, I'm sorry, I think it's in the Personnel Act for state employees. A state employee cannot run for a contested, for a partisan office, but could run for a nonpartisan office. And that's what the school board is. So at least there is a distinction in the law that treats nonpartisan offices more liberally in terms of access of public officials to serve on it, just for what that's worth. I don't know that we have anything in our code comparable.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comment, or is it time for a motion?
I'm making all the motions, somebody else.
Somebody other than Paul.
I thought Ms. Amer made a motion. Didn't she make a motion? So I'll move to dismiss.
Second.
I'll
Okay.
second. Since I,
I'll let Kramer second. Okay.
okay.
I'm sorry, who's on the
I
for the second?
moved.
Okay, Ms. Kavanaugh moved to dismiss the complaint, and I heard a second from, I think Ms. Amer was the most vocal about it. So the second from Ms. Amer. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote.
Member Amer,
Yes.
Member Biederman,
Yes.
Member Kovna.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. The complaint is dismissed. Ms. Furlick, thank you and Mr. Herrera, thank you for joining us today. Such a busy time of year, but we really appreciate you being here to help us work through these complaints and get them resolved. So thank you very much.
Thank you and happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays to you too. All right, on the agenda, we have public comment. I don't think there's anyone attending publicly, but if I'm missing someone, would anyone like to speak?
Should we get Arcustina back, Martinez?
Yeah, I guess we should. Let me, I will tell her that we don't need her, but if she would like to come back, she's welcome. Does that make sense? Is there any?
Yes.
Of course, do we have a quorum now?
We do.
Oh, yeah, we do. Okay. Never mind. Pardon me.
Okay, seeing no public comment. Item 7, matters from the staff.
Chair Miller, I have nothing at this time. I do just want to side note that we are reviewing our disclosure form process, and we are working on both an audit and also a process moving forward to ensure that they're sent in a timely manner and that we're updating them on a regular basis annually. So
Good. Yeah, thanks. I didn't mean to, be casting any aspersions on what the city does. I know there's a lot of appointments and a lot of paperwork to track, and I know that's not easy, but my main point was that there seems to be an obligation on the part of the city too to keep track of that. And if we as the city don't do it, then we should bear some responsibility too. So, but thanks. I think that's good to get a better handle of it.
yes,
Paul?
absolutely. Oh, sorry.
No, fine. We haven't had a meeting for a while, and I actually think I should make a disclosure, because since the last meeting, I was put on the payroll of the city as opposed to contract to be the alternate municipal judge. And I asked the city attorney if that change would create a conflict for me from serving on this board. And she wrote back, no, there's no conflict. But I just want to make sure that's on the record that and the reason was that you made me think of it because the city accounting, or the IRS audit found that I should have been, because of the nature of the work I do as an on-call municipal judge, when the judge needs me, I need to be on the payroll and not on a contract. And so that change was made, and I hope that doesn't, I don't know if that creates a problem, but I was told that it doesn't by the city attorney. So just thought I'd put that on the record.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for checking with the city on that, and that makes sense to me, so. All right, that's it for matters from the staff, I think, and matters from the committee. Anything else from the committee? Okay, seeing none, matters from the chair. I don't have anything to add. Item 10, next meeting, no meeting is scheduled. I think we can take a break, and hopefully we've seen the end of the 2021 election complaints.
Not a chance.
We do have, I think, a number of issues that have been raised during this cycle that we as a board, I think would be, I think it'd be prudent for us to address them. And so in our first quarter 2022 meeting, if anybody has, kind of kept track of any issues that were sort of unclear or shortcomings in the rules or ordinances that we've noted, please keep them in mind, and let's do our best to stay on top of them and improve things if we can at the next. So we'll bring some of those issues up at the next meeting, but I'm not going to try to schedule anything right now. So with that,
Yeah,
yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Justin. Yeah, I think if at the next meeting, we could just identify, issues that we have previously.
Yeah, Judy, you kind of cut out there, but I think your point was made. And let's do that. Let's identify issues at the next meeting and see what we can do to address them. Okay, on to item 11, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Biederman, seconded by Ms.
Second.
Calcott. And the vote to adjourn?
Member Amer,
Yes.
Member Biederman,
Yes.
Member Kovnat.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a
Thank you. Happy New Year.
happy new year.
Yes,
Happy
same to
holidays.
everyone.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.